Hello.
Welcome, everyone. I'm really glad you can join us for this wonderful session. I know it's going to be wonderful with Fabrizio. We do need some more poetry in our life right now and always and forever. And this is a wonderful focus to bring it into how that poetry can support compassion for ourselves, which we also need, and for each other. So my name is Tanisara. I'm part of the Sacred Mountain Sangha team, and really delighted to host this session and to host a very dear friend, fellow Dharma practitioner, a teacher who's now a resident in Rome, but used to live up until very frequently, lived up the road from us in Sebastopol here in California. So welcome, Fabrizio. And I just want to actually, because Fabrizio has actually studied so deeply and has so many cultures at his fingertips. So I just want to say a little bit about Fabrizio, who's studied a lot in the Dharma. He's been practicing Vipassana for over 20 years in the Mahasi societal tradition, which is actually a very demanding tradition to practice within. That isn't, for the faint-hearted. And he's the founder of the Ashoka Center of Awareness in Rome, which Fabrizio established last year, where he continues to teach Vipassana and the Mahasi tradition. After graduating from Italy, when he was at college there, university, he moved to London, and then to Australia, where he graduated in cultural anthropology at the University of Sydney with a thesis on shamanism in Colombia, which is a piece that we also need to hear more about one day. It's a really profound and beautiful piece.
Maybe today.
Yes, absolutely. As soon as Fabrizio graduated, he moved to India to teach English to the community of Tibetan monks and refugees, another piece we need to hear more about, and lived in Asia for 4 years, traveling to Burma, Myanmar now, Nepal, Thailand, to practice intensively, and then returned to Australia to continue his practice in the Blue Mountain Insight Meditation Center, which beautiful place, beautiful area of that country, that continent. Fabrizio is also a recent graduate of the Sacred Mountain Sangha Dharmapala 2-year training, which was wonderful having Fab, as we affectionately call Fabrizio, on that training and contributing and being part of the group and our learning together. So, and Fabrizio, as I mentioned, is back now in Rome. So welcome, Fabrizio. Thank you so much for joining us. And
Thank you.
Yes, just to mention, if you'd like to put in the chats, anyone, where you're from, your name and where you're from, and any greeting, you'd be welcome to do that. Otherwise, I'm just going to now hand you over to Fab. There you go.
Thank you, Tanisara. Yes, if you could write where you're from in the chat so we get an idea of where people are listening from. And I can see the chat. San Francisco, Italy. There will be some Italy. Thank you, Kathy. Canada. Okay, I'll keep an eye on that. Thank you. Maine. So we're joining 2 continents, maybe a third, maybe Australia will show up at some point. We don't know. But thank you so much for your presence, and thank you so much for coming here. And I was going to say, I have no words to thank Kitisara and Tanisara, but that would be weird as I'm about to give a talk. So I do need words. And they have been absolutely wonderful. Most of what's coming out today is actually, I owe it to them. And this is, and I find this really moving, their transmission and their care and discipline and devotion. And I really, really hope that I can do it justice. Um, it's been wonderful practicing with them and knowing them. So thank you. And speaking of shamanism, yes, I did write my thesis on hallucinogenic drugs in Colombia, which was not recreational, I promise. It was this exploration of an alternative reality. And as I was a teenager, I grew up in Rome, in a suburb, and I know we have this fantasy of Rome being amazing and everyone's fashionable, and the suburbs aren't like that. And so I had this yearning for an exploration, and really my hero became Castaneda and the shamanism, and I think it was a lot of people's hero. And he really got me on track with exploring a different side of reality. And Ajahn Suchito talked to us a few weeks ago, and he said, there are several realities, and this is not even the most interesting one. And that got me really excited. It's true. And so I went into depth with that until I found the practice, which was then my second and biggest love. But this is how I got to the practice. And so in honor of that, I'd like to read you a passage from a dialogue between Castaneda and Don Juan, who was his teacher as the shaman, which I think is really apt for a meditation practice. And I want to start with this, and then I'll tell you where I'm going to try and go. And so Don Juan talks to Carlos, and he says to him, we talk to ourselves incessantly about our world. I don't know if any of you has noticed that this happens. In fact, we maintain our world with an internal talk. And whenever we finish talking to ourselves about ourselves and our world, the world is always as it should be. And I love the conditional here. The love is always as it should be, not as it is, as it should be, according to what we're thinking, according to what world we're creating for ourselves. We renew it, we rekindle it with life, we uphold it with our internal talk, we make it so solid. We are our best prison guards. We create all these worlds and all these walls, and then we lock the key to the cell and throw the key outside. So we renew it, we rekindle it with life, we uphold it with our internal talk. Not only that, we also choose our paths as we talk to ourselves. Thus, we repeat the same choices over and over until the day we die, because we keep on repeating the same internal talk over and over until the day we die. And as I read it, I was like, oh, does this sound like samsara? And is samsara about having a relationship with this fictional world that we think it's real? And in the end, he says, a warrior is always aware of this and strives to stop his internal talk. And Don Juan talks about a warrior. And it's interesting because in the Mahasi tradition, we meditate, we're asked to meditate like warriors. And I loved it until things started to change. But as a warrior, Don Juan says, we can make ourselves miserable or happy. The effort is the same. Isn't it amazing? We can make ourselves miserable or happy. The effort is the same, and it really is the same. And so I remember my very first teacher, Lynn, in Australia, always said to me, it's not what you think. It didn't matter what I told her. She always said to me, it's not what you think. And it took me years to realize that we would have a relationship, that I was having a relationship with this conceptual world, not with the real world. And so there's at some point in our lives, if we're practicing, there's a moment of grace. It's the moment where we kind of see that this is a fictional world. We get a glimpse of it, and then we fall back into it. We get a glimpse of it, but there's a moment of grace where we stop. When we stop and we get a glimpse, and we ask the question. And this question is not conceptual. At least that's been my experience. It really isn't conceptual. It's about the body. And so Mary Oliver, she's really famous East Coast poet. She wrote this poem that really reminds me of this. It's called The Journey. And in the first line, she describes this act of grace. One day you finally knew. It's that moment. One day you finally knew. One day you finally knew what you had to do and began. Though the voices around you kept shouting their bad advice, though the whole house began to tremble and you felt the old tug at your ankles, mend my life, each voice cried, but you didn't stop. You knew what you had to do. And we hear it often in the spiritual traditions, this sense of going home. And the very first time I went into a meditation hall, I still remember it. I really had this sense of going home. But to go home, to go to our real home, we have to leave the other home that Don Juan was describing. And this is the journey, and it's not an easy one. And so when people come meditating at our meditation center, they ask me, how long will it take until I feel better? And I usually tell them at my own risk that this is not a pleasant practice sometimes. This practice is not pleasant, and it's hard. And so one day you finally knew. And then we go back to being identified with the world that Don Juan was describing. But we start living our lives, and you knew what you had to do. And then Mary Oliver continues, though the wind pried with his stiff fingers at the very foundations, though the melancholy was terrible, it was already late enough and a wild night, and the road full of fallen branches and stones. And it is like that when we begin to practice. And there's the itch, and we need to scratch, and there's the pain, and there's irritation, and the doubt. And yet, one day we finally knew. We knew what we had to do, and we keep walking. It was already late enough and a wild night, and the road full of fallen branches and stones. And we keep practicing. But little by little, as you left their voices behind, the stars began to burn through the sheets of clouds. And there was a new voice, which you slowly recognized as your own, that kept you company as you strode deeper and deeper into the world, determined to do the only thing you could do, determined to save the only life you could save. And at first it feels selfish. Man, my life, Each voice cried, but you didn't stop. It feels selfish, but it's not selfish. And it's not selfish when she says, as you strode deeper and deeper into the world, as you find your place into the world. That's and Kittisaro was saying how Ajahn Chah would explain how you become the Dharma. That's what you do when you practice, is you stride deeper and deeper into the world by paying attention as the world as it is, not as you think it is. And I always remember practicing, and the whole practice was pay attention, the continuity of mindfulness. Pay attention, pay attention. But it's painful, I don't want it. Just observe it as you stride deeper and deeper into the world. And it was the most compassionate advice, keep paying attention. And as Tanisara said, Mahasi practice is not for the faint-hearted. And it isn't. And it is this masculine warrior energy. And as I kept practicing though, especially after meeting Kittisaro and Tanisara, as that there is that balance of that male warrior energy and a more compassionate energy, the warrior with a soft heart. Because when we start paying attention, we might see, actually, we often see things we don't like about ourselves. They come up. And if for the people that begin the practice, they always say to me, oh, since I started practicing, I think a lot more. It's a recurring thing. And of course, I always say, now you just see it more. And then the doubt starts. I'm not good enough. I can't practice. I can't be this warrior all the time. And so it's important as these parts of us begin to come out, these parts of us we don't like, and that we've kept in the basement all these years, they begin to show when we're quiet, when we pay attention, when we stop relating to the world as we think it is. And so I want to stay with Mary Oliver. And she wrote this poem of great, great, great self-compassion. And the first line is, you do not have to be good. And she could have finished the poem here, as far as I'm concerned. I heard that, I'm like, you don't have to be good. You don't have to be good. You don't have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. How many times have I done that? Trying to be good and having this idea of what a good meditator is. Walking on my knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. And this only, I think, is the turning point and the most important part of this poem. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. It's that part of you knew what you had to do. Though the bad voices kept shouting their advice, you knew what you had to do. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. It's the first foundational mindfulness kaya in the body. And then as we observe the body, stuff comes up, emotions come up, all these people, all this part of ourselves that were in the basement start coming out slowly. And she continues, tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. When we're busy about talking about despair, we forget that the world goes on, and the world goes on because it's compassionate. The world goes on because it's impermanent. The world goes on to show us that it's not always about ourselves. When we create these stories, we are the star of the story, at the center of the suffering. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees and the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination. As you walk deeper and deeper into the world, you find your place into the world. You work deeper and deeper into the world. It feels like a selfish act, but it isn't. It is about connecting with what is real, even if sometimes it sucks. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination and calls to you like wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. And the world is harsh and exciting. And this is the paradox of the practice. As we sit, we think that we practice and it will get better, that we will get better meditators, whatever a good meditator is, or whatever this meditation thing is. We think we will get better, and sometimes we just don't. Because it doesn't match the movie we have created. It doesn't match the world that we have been weaving, the world that Don Juan describes to Carlos Castaneda. Sometimes it just doesn't match it. It's not what you think. And so when we find ourselves in these places, we think that we can't practice. We think that we're not good enough. There's doubt. And we're restless. And sometimes we're locked up in a monastery in Lumbini. And there's no one there. It's a true story. And it was the monsoon, and there were three of us, and Sadhu Vivekananda had left. And it was such a dark place. And I really, at some point, began to wonder what a psychiatric hospital would look like in Lumbini. And I really thought, okay, I'm going to end up there. Because the cracks in the world we had created started getting bigger. And so there was this contact with reality, and the world is harsh and exciting. And until equanimity is strong enough to open the heart to the world as it is, we tremble and we go into dark places. And we need to support ourselves. And so I'm in Rome, and I thought, what is a poem about being in dark places? Of course, nel mezzo di cammin di nostra via mi ritrovai per una selva oscura che la strada dritta era smarrita. Midway upon the journey of our life, I found myself within a forest dark, for the straightforward pathway had been lost. And this is the first three lines of the Divine Comedy, and he's in hell. The straightforward pathway had been lost. And it is like that. And sometimes it is like that. And I found this poem by Rilke, a German poet, and he describes it so beautifully. That dark place where the straightforward path had been lost. And he says, I am such a long way in, I see no way through, and no space. And everything is close to my face, and everything close to my face is stone. And we lose sight of impermanence, and we lose sight of compassion for ourselves. And because we're in the Mahasi tradition, we don't practice metta because that's a secondary practice, and compassion is a secondary practice. We just want to get enlightened now. And yet, I'm such a long way in, I see no way through, and no space, and everything is close to my face, and everything close to my face is stone. We have those moments of tragedy in our lives. And yet we expect from us to rise up to those moments of tragedy. And sometimes I'm thinking, I can't even observe this itch that has been bothering me for the past 10 minutes. And so that's where compassion for ourselves comes in. It's compassion and the courage. And this is another important part. The courage and the vitality to meet this, even when everything is close to my face and everything close to my face is stone. There is a vitality in the practice. There is an innocence. We are asked by the Buddha to observe things as we had never seen them before. We're asked to pay attention. And we're asked to pay attention with energy, vitality, and curiosity. The energy of a child, an image that comes to mind is a child that walks into a zoo for the first time, a giraffe, and it's exciting. I have never seen it, and it's exciting. And when we pay attention and we stride deeper and deeper into the world, it can be exciting. Even if we have to walk through fallen branches in a dark, windy night to leave home and to go home. And so the practice does give us this, the innocence, the excitement to see things as they are. And this is a poem by Nina Bogan. It's called Initiation to. I think she spent some time in the south of France. She wrote this poem in the south of France. And it begins, at the crossroads, hands scratch circles into the white dust. And I love how she pays attention. At the crossroads, hands scratch circles into the white dust. It's just these details. At the crossroads, hands scratch circles into the white dust. There was a shop where I bought coffee and eggs, coarse grain chocolate, almost too sweet to eat. When I walked up the road, the string sack heavy on my arm, I thought that my legs could take me anywhere, into any country, any life. This is the excitement that comes from the practice when we pay attention, and the joy and the curiosity come up. I thought that my legs could take me anywhere, into any country, any life. There is this joy, this possibility. The air, dazzling as sand, grew dense with light. Bougainvillea spilled over the salmon walls. The road veered into the ravine. The world could be those colors, the mangoes, the melons, the avocado evenings, releasing the circles of moon. Again, the details and the excitement to be observing these details. And then she goes back a little. I climbed the pink stairs, entered the house, as calm, as ephemeral as my own certainty. This is my house, my key, my hand with its new lines. I am as old as I'll ever be. This is my house, my key, my hand with its new lines. I am as old as I'll ever be. I find this so moving. She paid attention to all the details with the excitement. I thought that my legs could take me anywhere into any country, any life. And this is what the practice does. Yes, there is suffering. The world is harsh and exciting. And this is the paradox of equanimity, that when it's strong enough, is capable of embracing. I thought that my legs could take me anywhere into any country, any life. And tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. The world has both. And this is, yes, the first noble truth. There is suffering. And the second noble truth. This is why we suffer. There is attachment and aversion. And the third noble truth, there is freedom. I thought that my legs could take me anywhere, into any country, any life. It is in the engagement, the energy that we engage with the details, with life as it is, not with the idea as life should be. And so we have the courage to be, you don't have to be good. The courage to stop and let the soft animal, that is your body, love what it loves. And the energy. I thought that my legs could take me anywhere, into any world, into any country, any life. And from the courage to practice, from the courage to go and see what sometimes is not comfortable to see. The courage to go and open these locks. When these kids have been locked up, this part of us have been locked up, and sometimes the locks are rusty and the doors are heavy, and those part of ourselves inside are pissed. They're grieving. They haven't been let out. But from this, and I remember Michelle McDonald saying, it's a practice of purification. It's like washing clothes. We put them in soapy water. And it's a practice of purification. The dirt will come out, and we want it to come out. But when it actually comes out, we don't want it. We don't want to see it. And yet, it is about going deeper and deeper into the world, to have the courage to keep walking. And I want to share something with you quickly. Our friend Mary called Charlie, that's my dog Charlie, she called him a doggy sattva. I think it's a great name. And we're walking in the park, and I saw this photo. It was only taken a few days ago, and I thought, wow, the practice is like this. Sometimes we can only see this far. We know there's a road. For 2,500 years, someone has walked on the road. The teachers, our teachers, Kitisara and Tomisara, have walked on that road, and the teachers before them have walked on the road, and we trust them. And that's Sada. And I love the translation of Sada, not just as faith, but as a movement of the heart. We can only see a meter ahead. We know we're heading towards the end of suffering, but we can't see how that's going to happen because it's not what we think. And so we trust. And so we're building trust. We're building the courage to keep walking, the energy. And we practice and we increase our mindfulness and our concentration. And then, hopefully, with a bit of luck, some wisdom arises. And we begin to see things as they are. And sometimes they are exciting. And sometimes, again, like I said before, they're not. And impermanence takes its toll. And we need to balance this innocence with the wisdom that comes with age and from the practice. And this is the other paradox. The world is harsh and exciting and it's innocent, but we also need the wisdom to keep walking on the road, because it's the wisdom that guides us and the faith that guides us. And this is a poem by Fleur Adcock. It's called Weathering. Literally thin-skinned, I suppose. My face catches the wind of the snow line and flushes with a flush that will never wholly settle. Literally thin-skinned, I suppose. My face catches the wind of the snow line and flushes with a flush that will never wholly settle. Well, that was a metropolitan vanity, wanting to look young forever, to pass. I was never a Prabhupada-like beauty, nor anything but pretty enough to satisfy men who need to be seen with passable women. But now that I'm in love with a place which doesn't care how I look, or if I'm happy, happy is how I look, and that's all. But now that I'm in love with a place which doesn't care how I look, or if I'm happy, happy is how I look, and that's all. My hair will go gray in any case, my nails cheap and flake, my waist thicken, and the years work all their usual changes. If my face is to be weather-beaten as well, that's little enough lost, a fair bargain for a year among the lakes and fells, when simply to look out my window at the high pass makes me indifferent to mirrors and to what my soul may wear over its new complexion. It's little enough lost, a fair bargain for a year among the lakes and fells, when simply to look out my window at the high pass makes me indifferent to mirrors and to what my soul may wear over its new complexion. But now that I'm in love with a place which doesn't care how I look, or if I'm happy, happy is how I look, and that's all. There is enormous self-compassion there and acceptance for things as they are. And so we bring the innocence and the courage and we observe. We bring the mindfulness and the concentration. And yes, we can be Mahasi warriors. And then we're also compassionate towards ourselves. As we mess up. And sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes I'm such a long way in, I see no way through and no space, and everything is close to my face, and everything close to my face is stone. And then here it continues. I don't have much knowledge yet in grief, so this massive darkness makes me small. You be the master, make yourself fierce, break in. Do something. Somebody do something. Because I can't take it anymore. Sometimes there is the energy. His legs could take me anywhere, to any country, any life. And sometimes everything close to my face is stone. You be the master, make yourself fierce, break in, do something. Then your great transforming will happen to me, and my great grief cry will happen to you. And he's saying, this is all I have. And sometimes we go, enough, I get it. And I see myself first, and the students, the yogis, that begin to practice, and they hear about accepting things, and that is the solution, that is the root of suffering. And they say to me, I have accepted it and it hasn't left. I have accepted the pain in my leg and it hasn't left. Because we can't see that that's actually not really accepting. I'll accept you if you leave. You can stay, and I accept you. I promise I accept you if you leave. And so we start doing this dealings with ourselves. I'll accept you for 5 minutes. and then you gotta go, because when you accept things, they go. I read it. I'm sure I read it. It wasn't some book somewhere. And this is the difference between practicing and reading about it. Theory can be relatively easy. Sure, there is suffering. Yeah, sure. I get that. Suffering because I don't accept things. Okay, sure. I'll accept it. Sure. And if I accept it, it's gotta go. Not a problem. Done. And then we're on the cushion of our life, and tragedy strikes because the world is harsh and exciting, and it's harsh. And we need to bring that compassion to that space, because the male Mahasi warrior sometimes is not enough without the compassion. And compassion is that quality of mind that takes care of suffering. It looks after the suffering. Doesn't want to get rid of it, doesn't drown in it. It just looks after it. Like Kuan Yin, she who listens at ease to the sounds of the world, she ain't trying to get rid of it. She's not accepting it because so it goes. She's looking after it for however long it takes. And when we look after our pain, I was in Burma and I had my knee on fire for 2 weeks. I'd sit down and my knee was on fire. And I go to the interview and I'd say, my knee's on fire. And they tell me to observe it. And I go back and observe it. And still my knee was on fire. And then Mia said to me, that is your ticket. That is your ticket to the end of suffering. And it's counterintuitive, isn't it? Take care of that pain. Observe it. Look after it. That is your ticket to Nibbana. I didn't like it. I didn't like it because I didn't want to go there. Because I didn't want to hang out there. I didn't want to waste my time. You come in and do something. Someone do something. There's this beautiful poem by David White, The Well of Grief. Those who will not sleep beneath the still surface on the well of grief. Those who will not sleep beneath the still surface on the well of grief. Turning down through its black water to the place we cannot breathe. Turning down through its black water to the place we cannot breathe. Everything is close to my face, and everything close to my face is stone. I cannot breathe. Those who will not sleep beneath the still surface on the well of grief, turning down through its black water to the place we cannot breathe, will never know the source from which we drink, the secret water, cold and clear, nor find in the darkness glimmering the small round coins thrown by those who wished for for something else. Nor find in darkness glimmering the small round coins thrown by those who wished for something else. And the wish is that we don't have to go down the well of grief. We don't have to observe the pain. And yet, we want to create a relationship with the world as it is. And the world as it is harsh and exciting. And we throw everything down that well of grief. David White says that we throw our credit cards, our new shoes. We throw anything not to have to go down those cells. And yet, those who will not sleep beneath the still surface on the well of grief will never know the source from which we drink, the secret water, cold and clear, nor find in the darkness glimmering the small round coins thrown by those who wish for something else. It's painful. We don't want it. That's the second noble truth. And yet, that is liberation. To understand that it's not the pain that is causing the suffering, is the fact that we don't want it. It's the fact that we don't want to go down the secret water cold and clear. That is the suffering. And so it takes an act of courage. It takes to love, to let the soft animal that's your body love what it loves, to follow that intuition, the act of grace that gets us to live our comfortable home that we've created, where everything is as it should be. But the world is deeply unsafe and deeply not as it should be. And yet we stride into the world deeper and deeper. This is our practice. This is our practice. And it is an intuition. It's an intuition of the body. You knew what you had to do. One day you finally knew what you had to do. It's an act of grace. It's an intuition. We can't put words to it. We just know we need to do it. My first retreat in Australia was 30 days. I don't know what I was thinking. No one in the same mind would do that. But I kind of knew that's what I had to do. It was hell. It wasn't pleasant. But it's what I felt I had to do. It is that spark of grace, the glimmering of the practice. Listen to your body, to listen and let the body love what it loves. And Neruda writes this when he wrote his first poem. And he starts with, I did not know what to say. My mouth had no way with names. My eyes were blind, but something started in my soul. Fever or forgotten wings. And I made my own way, deciphering the fire, and I wrote the first faint line. And here it changes. And I wrote the first faint line, faint, without substance, pure nonsense, pure wisdom, the wisdom of someone who knows nothing. This is incredible. It's another paradox, and yet it makes so much sense. The wisdom of someone who knows nothing. And suddenly I saw the heavens unfastened and open, planets, palpitating plantations, shadow perforated, riddled with arrows, fires and flowers, the winding night, the universe. And yet, the winding night, the universe, as I wrote the first line faint, without substance, pure nonsense, pure wisdom of someone who knows nothing. And that was the key that opened the universe. That was the key. It wasn't about studying it. It's the pure wisdom who knows about who knows about nothing. And so as we practice, we bring in this energy, this innocence, and the wisdom, and the mindfulness, and the concentration, and the movement of the heart, the faith, to walk, to leave a house that sometimes is comfortable, and if it's messy and there's messy things going on in there, and we all have our neuroses, but they kind of work and it's okay, and we can live with it. At least we know them. At least we don't have to leave the house and there's fallen branches and wind, and it's not 2 a.m. As I wrote the first line faint, without substance, pure nonsense, pure wisdom of someone who knows nothing. And so we practice, and we accumulate. It's a practice of purification. We let all this part of ourselves come out, and sometimes they're pissed, and they're grieving, and we hang out with them. We let them in. And one of my teachers, Mia, has this wonderful metaphor of driving a school bus. And there's all these kids outside, all these parts of ourselves, the forgotten ones with the snot, nits, and they're dirty, and they're not well behaved, and they're cranky, undisciplined, unruly. Ones we don't like, we want to leave outside. And yet, we drive the school bus and we see them. And when we practice and we apply this compassion towards ourselves, we stop. For one time, we stop. We stop and we let them in. And we let them in and they sit next to us. And we listen to them. And we let them hang out. And we don't let them think. We accept them so they can go away. They are the parts of ourselves. We let them hang out. But, she says, you never ever let them drive the bus. They don't have a license. Because if we let them drive the bus, we identify with them, and you let a 3-year-old with nits and is well behaved and is cranky, you let him drive the bus, we'll go off the cliff. That's what happens. But we let them in. And so as we practice and we go through all this, it's almost like all these parts of ourselves become more and more integrated. And we get to see who we are. There's strange parts, these cranky parts we don't like. We have compassion for them. And we let them practice with us. They come on the bus, they come on the meditation hall. Even if we can't, they don't want to. They sit with us. And this is a poem by Derek Walcott. He's from St. Lucia. It's called Love After Love. The time will come when With elation, you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome. The time will come when, with elation, you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome. And each will smile at the other's welcome and say, sit here, eat. You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you ignored for another, whom you ignored for that part that Castaneda was talking about. The constructed sense of self. Who am I? I am this. And continue perpetuating the world like that. See, hear, eat. You will love again the stranger who was yourself. All these kids that we let out from the basement. Give wine, give bread. Give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you know for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit, feast on your life. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit, feast on your life. And the image of the feast is really important. We don't just serve boiled rice and a feast. We let everyone in and we feed them properly. It's a feast. The time will come when, with elation, you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, sit here, eat. You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who's loved you all your life, whom you ignored for another. The one we have created that had to be good. You don't have to be good. We ignored them for the other that had to be good. The one that always says the right things. The one who's always polite, especially as Buddhists. Always have to be polite and nice. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who's loved you all your life. And this part of ourselves, they're angry and they're grieving, but they still love us. Whom you ignore for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit, feast on your life. It's about this integration. The world is harsh and exciting, and we embrace everything. And this is the big heart of equanimity. The queen of the Brahma-viharas. It's the heart that knows that when it opens, it lets everything in and it embraces everything. Everything. And I think that the Buddha in the practice doesn't ask us to overcome our humanity. He asks us to embrace our humanity as it is. And I want to leave you with this, the last thing. This is one of my favorite quotes by Adyashanti. And I wanted to finish with a quote about enlightenment because in the circles I move in Italy, it's almost like you can't mention it. It's almost like we're practicing to lower our blood pressure and to be calmer and get results. And so I often read this, and A third of the people never come back. Enlightenment is a destructive process. Enlightenment is a destructive process. It has nothing to do with becoming better or being happier. It has nothing to do with becoming better or being happier. Enlightenment is the crumbling away of untruth. It's seeing through the facade of pretense. It's the complete eradication of everything we imagine to be true. Enlightenment is a destructive process. It has nothing to do with becoming better or happier. Enlightenment is the crumbling away of untruth. It's the seeing through the facade of pretense. It's the complete eradication of everything we imagine to be true. We don't know what it is. We don't know what it is. We think it is about being happier, but it's the complete eradication of everything we imagine to be true. And until we get there, we don't know, we really don't know what it is. And it is back to the first dialogue that Castaneda had. We create our own world, and the world is always as it should be. As it should be, not as it is. As it should be is the conditional there. As it should be. And this is the root of suffering. Conditional, I reckon, is the root of suffering. Should be like this. We renew it, we rekindle it with life, we uphold it in our internal talk. Not only that, but we also choose our paths as we talk to ourselves. Thus, we repeat the same choices over and over until the day we die. But enlightenment is a destructive process, or if we want to be a little kinder, maybe it's a process of purification. But it has nothing to do with becoming better or being happier or lowering our blood pressure. That's my addition. And it is about embracing our humanity. It is about becoming the Dhamma. It is about striding deeper and deeper into the world. Let the soft animal that is your body love what it loves. And being welcome in the family of things, all of us, all the parts of us. And in the Metta chant, the Buddha says it, everyone, the born, the unborn, the tall, the short, the little, the huge ones, everyone, even the part of us that are cranky, restless, sad, angry, all of us. Let's sit for a couple of minutes. And as we see, I really would appreciate if we could all share a thought of metta for the people in Myanmar. It's what is happening. It's for the struggle, having to go through a coup again. May they all be happy and protected and free from harm. And may the fruits of our practice be shared by everyone, everywhere. Srina Sagadatta Maharaj said, it is the mind that creates the abyss. It is the heart that crosses it. All beings everywhere, even the ones we can't imagine right now, the heart knows where it's going. It crosses the abyss. And thank you for your practice. Of course. I don't know if there are any questions, how long we have, or I'm happy to, if we have a few minutes.
Thank you so much. It felt like being in a long poem on a journey. It's very deep and winding, and just coming back to these bass notes that you were touching into and bringing in the poems again and again, like a kind of gathering this momentum, like we were in this. Actually, there's a background noise that was sort of going while you were talking.
That's my stove.
Your stove, because in my mind, we're on a big ship going across an ocean. I just sort of felt like I was on this ship with this noise, and we were on and we're going through this ocean of life. And and you were just weaving in these poems and your life and Dharma, and the whole thing was just like a long, beautiful journey.
Thank you.
Yes. And what a stove! It's classic.
Yes.
I'm so used to the American thing where everything is crisp and sharp, and we have to check-ins of, is your mic right, is your visuals right, and just sort of just hearing life happening, the stove happening, a car went past, and just not hearing. I just felt like a relaxing in and of itself. It was an invitation into what poetry is, which is a different language.
Thank you. Sorry about the stove, but I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I was interested what my mind did with it in the end.
Right. Oh, good.
That worked.
Good. It was totally unplanned like everything else, but hey, it worked.
For an unplanned thing, that worked.
Yes.
So yeah, it'd be lovely to if anyone would like to, share any of your responses or anything you'd like to ask or mention or reflect on or share. You can either put your hand up if you go down to participants. Actually, if you go to reactions, there's a little you can raise hand. Like I just raised my hand. Have you got reactions on the bottom of your Zoom? You can raise a hand.
I do, but for some people it's somewhere else. I'm not sure where it is.
It's somewhere else. I'm just putting it somewhere else. It's by.
But I can put on gallery view and actually see your physical hands. How's that? If someone has. Kathy.
I don't know what I'm going to say right now, but I just love this. Um, I appreciate the poetry itself, also the depth of practice. It's just so brilliant, and I love I actually I all of it. But what is impressive to me is I have been practicing as a trauma therapist for decades. I've had really wonderful training, and the school bus, inviting parts of the self in, and they're angry and they're yucky, but they better not drive. And the David White poem about the image on the mirror and the Neruda, you speak to the depth of the work in psychology of actually healing and integrating oneself at the same time as our relation to life and the world. So I just am very moved, very impressed, and just really love what you've given us. So and it's rare to for me to hear the need for integration addressed so eloquently, or in the world, say, like, so for this to be something talked about in such, I guess, in many ways, poets go where psychologists are awkward and hoard their knowledge sometimes. Anyway, I just love this, and thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you. Thank you. If it's the same effort to be happy or suffer, why is most people live their life in suffering? What's an excellent question. I think because it's familiar. I think it's because it's the dialogue that Carlos Castaneda has with Don Juan at the beginning. We keep creating our own world and we think it's real. And so what I was trying to convey is that when we start cracking that world that we have created, things happen, real things. But sometimes non-real things, even if they make us suffer, they're comfortable because they're home. And so we don't want to make that journey to go home, but leave the home, even if it's kind of crappy and falling apart. We don't want to leave it because it's home. And going to a better home implies having to, like Mary Oliver describes it so beautiful, you have to leave and like it's 2 a.m. and there's falling branches and it's windy and it's just not inviting. You kind of really don't want to do it. As broken our houses may be, sometimes they're just home, more comfortable. I think, I don't know, maybe there's another interpretation too, but that was my feeling with the poem, and in my experience, it's even though I grew up in an interesting house, let's put it that way, going away was a lot easier than staying, and yet it didn't feel that easy. It's hard. There were moments where I had longing for the house that was a little messy, to put it mildly. And so I think what we're familiar with is our parts and our patterns and what it should be. I think that should be pivotal, how it should be. Because we don't know. It's almost like when we talk to ourselves about this world and we created it, we kind of if we don't pay attention, it's kind of, we don't give the chance to life to show what it is. And it is harsh and exciting. And so when it gets harsh, we kind of want to go to the whole old crappy place. It's natural. I think we were actually evolved that way, to shy away from suffering, but the practice asks us to go and look at it. And I love Ajahn Sucitto explained this so beautifully. He said, it's what did you do 2,500 years ago to get smart? You go into the forest, and only smart people survive in the forest. You had to pay attention. It's beautiful. It's that kind of intelligence. It's when the Buddha says, it's like it's the wisdom of someone who knows nothing. I love that so much. It's that body wisdom, that intuition that makes us do these things. That, for example, made me go to Nepal and or Burma, all these places, and just sleep in. Well, when I did my first retreat in America, I was like, "What? You get your own room and the sheets on the bed?" I went to IMS. I thought it was a 5-star hotel. It was amazing. So yes, sorry, short answer. I think that's what it is. Thank you. Jim?
Yeah, I love the fact that you started with Carlos Castaneda. I haven't thought of him since the 60s. And he was around and people were talking about him. But as a Vietnam veteran, I was so involved in trying to stop the Vietnam War and also the impending threat of nuclear annihilation, which was, I got an early glimpse of that possibility on my aircraft carrier. And as far as I could get in those days was trying to decipher Dylan. That was easier to grapple with. And now, as I'm ending up my life, I'm really appreciating poetry as a way to learn new things, but also as a way to express the parts of myself that I buried so long. It was really nice to go on this journey with you. Thank you.
Oh no, thank you. Thank you for coming. That's thank you. Yes, and all these poets have such a way. I don't think Mary Oliver is a practitioner, but she certainly is. I mean, she pays attention. I think that's what it is, and all of them, I think they really pay attention. I mean, that Nina Bogan, just at crossroads, hands scratch circles into the white dust. I mean, who would think to look at that? It's only who pays attention that goes deeper. I think this is what I love about that. And the poems can really embody that, I think, with poetry. Thank you. Kimberly.
Well, I just wanted to express so much gratitude for the nourishment in this teaching. And I knew when I saw the title of the webinar, I absolutely must go to that. It's just the whole body responded. And you wove together so much that's really dear to me. So many poems, actually, but together with the Kuan Yin perspective, I think that I've learned from Kittasaro and Kanisara that I'm so grateful for. And it actually brought to mind a dream I'd had decades ago that I always thought was very silly. But it was a moment where I was kind of shown a bunch of paths and was offered to follow the path of, it made me laugh because it's the silliness of the unconscious, of Jesus or Buddha or Pablo Neruda.
Was it just because you rhymed, or there was?
Well, I thought, oh, it's a silly thing. But then I hear this line from Pablo Neruda, and I, infinitesimal being, drunk with the great starry void, likeness, image of mystery, I felt myself a pure part of the abyss. I wheeled with the stars, and my heart broke free in the open sky. Oh, I understand. I understand. Yeah. So thank you so much for speaking this embodied wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you. And I had a yogi the other day, he had an insight, and he was talking to me, and he kept saying, you really see when someone's had an insight and they really see things. And so I read the poem to him. I was like, I think this really applies to you. And he said, Fabrizio, I really did see the stars, and she says, and then the clouds dissipated, and you see like the stars, and there was a voice that you slowly recognized as your own. And he said, and he kept telling me, I really saw the stars. And I was like, yes, it was so beautiful for me to witness that, and for him to just, I think it's so hard to, and especially in the Mahasi tradition, we're discouraged to get a bit too flowery in our language where we describe this experiences. But it's so nice when someone finds that the right word, someone else has found the right words for them, and it's like, this is how I felt. Like, yes, it kept saying to me, I saw the stars. And it's so beautiful. Thank you. Sally. No, I can't hear you.
You just need to unmute. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Fab. What you just said is part of what my own personal experience has been with poetry, and also with my clients. I use poetry in my work because part of what I love about poetry is that, especially these poets that have a wisdom that comes through the language and through the rhythm of the language and the unusual combination of words that touches something that is not easily expressed sometimes. And so I know for me, when I listen to a poem, it's not uncommon where something, a feeling tone, a feeling will get tapped into that then begins to help disentangle whatever other pieces may need to be, seen and felt. And I just think that it's wonderful, especially the layers of the poems. I haven't looked at poetry the way that you've looked at poetry, through the lens of the Dharma as much. So it's like the multiple layers, even within the appreciation of a poem, how it can be about how to live our day-to-day life in kind of a very pragmatic way, or it can take us deeper into ourselves in a way that allows us to visit those parts of us that haven't been given the space. So thank you very much.
Sure. Well, you're welcome. Thank you. Thank you.
Wow. One thing that came up, Fabrizio, was is it possible that you could send me a list of your poems so we can share them?
Yes, I really thought about that. I kind of made an email. I'll tidy it up and I'll put all the references. And I don't know if I should actually write the poems or put links, but maybe I'll write the poems, or I'll figure it out. Maybe I'll ask.
Easy for you, so you don't have.
Yeah. No, I had kind of prepared something like that to send after. I didn't want to send it before, not to do a spoiler alert, but but I thought, but yes, I had kind of prepared it. I'll send it either today or tomorrow.
I mean, just the name of the poem and the author.
Yeah. They easily.
Save you.
Yeah, for sure.
Handwriting. Yes.
Yes, that would be good, actually. Yes, to write them, to really taste them. Kathy, sorry, did you want to say something else?
Oh, only just that I appreciate you sending the poems, but I appreciate you sending yourself on this Zoom. And I'm grateful for this part of the pandemic that allows us to have you from Rome, and who you are, the way that you bring this to us.
Oh, thank you.
That's all.
Thank you. Yeah, maybe you should all come to Rome sometime on Zoom, and maybe in real life. I really hope we can make it happen. Remember the days when we used to fly? Thank you to Denise Renziger. Yes, of course. Again, I did it at the beginning, but I also want to do it at the end. Denise and Sarah, you're so very special. Thank you so much for having me. And
thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for offering.
Of course.
Sorry.
The stove.
to get into the Italian style of just butting in and doing my bit, you know, like.
Yes, it's contagious, obviously.
Get a word. Yeah, no, that was so beautiful. Thank you. It was like a balm and soothing and encouraging. And I love this bringing the warrior of the Mahasti Sayadaw and then the poetry of compassion. And I can really feel how that synthesizes in your being and in your expression and in your Dharma. And that's a beautiful modeling for how we all need to embody the Dharma. You know, these two great wings of the.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm new to the Dharma. This has scared and excited me. I know. I mean, there's someone that practices with us in Italy, and she knows that I scare people off. I just tell them the first day, this is not a pleasant practice. If you want relaxation, go to a spa. That's my tagline.
It's as it is, right up front, right?
Yes, you go. That's day one. You can run away now. Okay, I thought it was more. I hope it was more excitement than fear. I really hope so.
Well, you brought in everything, so it was a melange of everything, touching every place. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you, Fabrizio, and thank you to everyone for joining us from all over the world, all over the country here in the US and beyond. And everyone stay well and go well. And yeah, what a ride.
What a ride. Thank you. Oh, and another doggy sattva. Hello.
Yeah. Bring in the dogs.
Yes, bring in the dogs.
Yeah.
Thank you. It was lovely to meet you. For those, I don't know. Thank you, and I'll see you soon.
And we'll send you the recording so you can listen.
Thank you. Yeah. And do my own interpreting. Thank you.
Yeah, lots of love, everyone. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Experience. I think Jim thumbs it up.
Thank you. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Fabrizio. Thank you. Bye-bye.